Headline news most affecting Chilliwack this week. The candidates for the October 15th municipal election have until Friday at 4 o'clock to file their papers. 2 arrests have been made in an attempted abduction that happened literally down the road from chillTV. Mounties want to speak with a man who was exposing himself to kids at Cultus Lake. And both the high school football season and the Chilliwack Chiefs training camp have started this week. Josh is back this week with sports. Our special guests this week include election candidates David Swankey, who is running for Chilliwack School Board, and John Allen, who wants the mayor's chair in the village of Harrison. All right, Chilliwack, let's get started. This Friday at 4 o'clock is the deadline for candidates to declare and get their paperwork in for the 2022 municipal election. Over the past 10 days, both Mayor Ken Popoff and Councillor Jeff Shields declared their intention to run for re-election, and this week they both filed their paperwork. Mail-in ballots are now available online through the City of Chilliwack and City of Abbotsford websites, and sadly, it is now part of the process. Campaign signs are being vandalized. Bharathi Sandhu is running for Abbotsford City Council and expressed her sadness to chillTV that this is happening to her signs that were placed on private property, which means people are trespassing as well as vandalizing. So she hopes that awareness on social media will quell the vandalism. By the way, chillTV will have extensive coverage of the October 15th election immediately after the polls close. David Swankey will seek his second term as a Chilliwack school trustee. In 2018, he was doing double duty. He was running for school board while managing the failed mayoral bid for Sam Waddington. Well, this time around, Swankey will concentrate on the school board, and we will have an interview with him later on in the show. Nicole Hadama-Reed, who is the general manager of Community Futures South Fraser, an organization that works with Chilliwack's Economic Resource Network, is now running for Chilliwack City Council. She is endorsed by the soon-to-be former city councillor, Sue Knott. Before Community Futures, she and her husband owned a number of local businesses over the past 25 years. Mickey Vidal is going after her second term in the village of Harrison as councillor. Her focus is on the housing crunch in the village, as well as improving the active transportation plan. Vidal says she will continue to support recommendations in the Lagoon Master Plan and the Urban Forest Master Plan once adopted by council. Meanwhile, John Allen, no stranger to Harrison politics, will make another run for mayor and the mayor's chair in that city. The other candidates as we air is the incumbent Leo Fascio, as well as Ed Wood. Now, Allen has been quite vocal about the Harrison OCP, the official community plan. Allen will join chillTV for an interview. That will also be later on in the show. 2 arrests have been made following an attempted abduction last Sunday on Elkview Road in the Ryder Lake area. Witnesses reporting that there was a fight between 2 men and a woman, and one man was attempting to force another inside the trunk of a vehicle. That victim was able to escape and fled on foot. Chilliwack RCMP located the suspects and the vehicles involved. They have arrested a 29-year-old woman and a 37-year-old man. RCMP Serious Crimes are now asking for any video that might be available. RCMP continuing their investigation over 2 related incidents in Cultus Lake. First, where a man in his early 20s exposed himself to an adult and then to some kids. This happened in the last week of August, and witnesses say it appears this was the same suspect. Now, if you have any information or dash cam footage, you are asked to contact Chilliwack RCMP. Chilliwack's Bernard Elementary was the backdrop for the Mounties to stress back-to-school safety and respect school zone speed limits. It was also a reminder to stop for school buses. RCMP Sergeant Krista Vrolik told chillTV that the district itself sends more than 10 reports a month to RCMP about drivers not respecting bus lights and the stop signs. This on top of the many other complaints from citizens. It was also the official opening of one new school, Stitos, which is both an elementary and a middle school, which is next to UFE. Chilliwack City Council receiving a recommendation that would look at options to improve safety on the Vedder River, and in particular, boaters who speed along the water and cause problems for local anglers and the environment. Cultus Lake visitors must have got the Labor Day message. Park legally or be towed. Tow trucks were in full force looking for lawbreakers parked along Columbia Valley Road. The FVRD electoral area chair for Area H, Taryn Dixon, telling chillTV, media coverage seems to have worked. There will be a fall review of the procedure about parking and make requests to the province for additional funding and make plans for next season. Quote, I really do think this past weekend was a good start. Super thankful to Reliable Towing, the RCMP, the FVRD, BC Parks, the Ministry of Transportation, and the local MLA, Kelly Padden. Wildfires in protected forest areas of Washington state crossed the border and forced an early end for a lot of long weekend campers in Chilliwack Lake and Manning Lake provincial parks. The Heather Lake fire is almost 2,000 hectares in size, and since last August, still remains listed as out of control. The 40th anniversary of the first Rambo movie, which was shot in Hope, is coming up on the Thanksgiving long weekend. There will be showings of First Blood, and you can win tickets for the shows and a few surprises through FEN, Fraser Valley News, and chillTV. chillTV will have Brian McKinney on the show, one of the organizers, and that'll happen very soon to talk about those celebrations. And speaking of celebration, in celebration of the Ostrich, that's the name of the Derek Edwards comedy tour coming to Chilliwack on Saturday. There are still tickets available through the Cultural Center box office. Now, this was the show that was postponed in April after Derek Edwards had to deal with medical issues. Check out his videos on YouTube from Just for Laughs. He is worth the ticket price. Coming up after the break, we have a number of candidate interviews, including David Swankey, who is running for candidate for school trustee for a second term, and John Allen, who is challenging for mayor again in Harrison. And following that, Josh will be back from vacation with sports. chillTV's News of the Week continues in conversation with David Swankey, who is wrapping up his first term as a school trustee in Chilliwack. He is going to run for a second term. David, unfinished business when you're looking at this second term, what would you like to see accomplished?
I'd like to see follow through on the work that's been done over this term. For me, we've got a new strategic plan that was introduced last year, implemented last year, and there's follow through required on that. I'd also add the long-range facilities plan, the way that informs capital planning documents over the next 5 years. That's going to be vitally important to the future success of the district. It informs new school builds, new school additions, and the priorities that we're communicating to the Ministry of Education and Childcare. Having said that,
last year, Imagine High went online. We've got the expansion of Vetter. Stetos is now online. And of course, the expansion of Graham. Is there room in that strategic plan for another full-blown high school? And if so, where do we put it? Because we seem to be running out of room.
Absolutely. Simply put, I don't know if it'll be a high school, but simply put, there has to be room for those schools because our growth projects that that's going to be the case. We can't be putting students in portables, as has been the case, out of necessity, but we need to be building proper facilities, appropriate classrooms for students to be learning in. There is space within it as long as we've got a good partner in the province. And thankfully, the long-range facilities plan that I mentioned, it looks not just at purchases of land, but it also looks at potential partnerships for land lease. That may be the future. Certainly we're crowded in the district by the Agricultural Land Reserve, and that's just a consideration that we have to work around and celebrate as a characteristic of the community.
I'm thinking of the Canada Education Park. Stetos is there with UFE. Is there any room there that would not bump up against the Vetter Trail, or do we have to look somewhere else?
Not to my knowledge. There's riparian zones, and certainly I believe the UFE's been a good partner to Chilliwack, and I would certainly hope that they're going to look to expand their footprint in the community going forward as well. So,
touching base on curriculum, there's been a lot of conversation about bringing back or more emphasis on the reading, writing, arithmetic. Yep. There's also been arguments that we should really be pushing trades more, and whatever happened to home ec and whatever happened to car shop and such. Have you been hearing a lot of that too? And can you do anything, or is that pretty much a provincial jurisdiction that can just say, look, this is what you can do and this is what we can afford?
No, certainly. I think it's really important that we don't look at those considerations as an either or. The way public education is presented in the province, it's core aptitudes. It's developing those literacy and numeracy skills, but it's also making sure that trades are available to students. And part of what boards are able to do are things like board-authorized courses, and that has included a lot of trades programs in the district that have been quite successful, and I'm confident in the benefits that they've brought to students in Chilliwack.
Jared Mumford is going to run for council and not for school trustee. Opening up a question of if it is presented to you, would you become a board chair?
It's a question I don't like to over-anticipate. There's an election. It's going to be decided on October 15th. It's really important that the voters have their say in the outcome before anybody starts anticipating leadership of the board. With that said, my hope for the board would be that whomever serves in that seat carries on the legacy of somebody like Trustee Mumford, who's been even temper and has been, I think, a steady hand over the past term.
And we would be remiss saying that it can be testy on the school board. Is there a fraction that can be patched up for cooperation?
Simply put, I believe it has to be. The word I've used to articulate it, I've heard others say it, is as acrimonious. Perhaps a little bit too generous at times because it's been quite problematic, frankly. But there's no choice over the next 4 years but to have a better working relationship between all 7 members there, and for that to inform the work of the district in a manner that instills confidence. I think ultimately that's what voters want. That's what the community of Chilliwack wants. They want confidence in the oversight and governance of public education in this community.
The last go round, you were wearing 2 hats, running for school board, but also you were working on Sam Waddington's campaign. I would assume that I don't want to use the term you have more free time, but it's got to be a little bit easier on getting the ducks in order.
I think that's fair to say. My attention is exclusively on that of being a candidate, being a credible candidate that is looking to gain, earn, and maintain confidence of voters this election, and to manage my own campaign and affairs related to it. Between that and my commitments to my family, that's quite enough for me this fall.
And you've got a toddler.
I've got a couple.
Yeah, exactly. Now, if somebody wants to reach out to you on social media and get a hold of you.
Absolutely. It's David Swankey on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. DavidSwankey.com will be going live in the next week, and I'm looking forward to hearing from the community. Council
candidate for the school board, David Swankey, and you're watching chillTV's News of the Week. chillTV's News of the Week, in conversation with somebody who has been around the political scene in the Fraser Valley for many years. John Allen, you have been mayor of the village of Harrison, 3 times?
4 times.
4 times. A councillor, and I've lost track.
I think 3 times, maybe 2, okay. Can't remember.
And you're running again against Leo Facio and Ed Wood, I believe, this time around.
Yes, I haven't heard about Leo. I know that Ed Wood's running.
Okay. Yeah. Your platform, I know the OCP, the Official Community Plan, is something that you've had an eye on. Pros and cons. What do you like? What do you want to see changed? And is that part of your platform?
Well, planning is very important for the growth of the community, for a stable economy, stable land use pattern. And we actually have currently a fairly good official community plan. This process that we're in at the moment did not even start with the review of that plan. And if it had, it would point out that the current regime has not met many of the objectives, if any, and in fact has broken many of the objectives of the OCP. So I think that the process itself has been badly flawed, because a community plan should be a progressive document. It should be changes that are made, still keeping the basic framework. In this case, they've completely thrown the old plan out, brought in a new plan, which I don't consider to be a proper official community plan, because it gets into issues like zoning and density and secondary suites, which are not OCP issues. And it proposes to take all of our single-family areas, the beautiful streets with the single-family homes, and densify those by adding secondary suites, coach houses, goodness knows what. And that, to my mind, would be a disaster.
Would that also include condos? I've been hearing this a number of times for people who have not been to Harrison over the last few years. Yeah. As you're driving in, where did all of this growth come from? Is that a good thing, a bad thing?
Well, in my opinion, it's a bad thing because it contravenes the official community plan, which in fact was a promise to people as to how the village would be developed. And that promise has been broken. So we've already got enough land currently zoned in Harrison for probably 600 or 700 condos. And if it comes to densification and population, we don't need to cut down any more trees or clear any more forest. We have enough land available in the village to reach our population target of 3,000 without rezoning anything or without cutting down any more of our valuable forest land.
And I would assume that's not bumping up against ALR either, that's already been put in place for potential zoning?
Strangely enough, there actually is ALR land in Harrison, even though there's no agriculture.
Okay.
And it's not prohibited under our bylaws. But there is an area of the woodland over in the east sector, which I like to call the Harrison Forest Park. And that is in the ALR, and we have, that's been a good thing because it's protected that land from clear cutting and development for some years. What we discovered through this OCP process is that the village is in negotiation on behalf of a developer to clear cut that land and turn it into another subdivision. And that is very unpopular in the village.
One thing that always comes up, and I don't know if the village can do anything about it, I think it's probably more of a provincial thing, but emergency planning, getting in, getting out. Highway 9, one way in, one way out. Is there any way of having a secondary exit route if needed? Forest Service Road to be rebuilt? Or
Yes. And what I proposed many, many years ago, I think probably the last time I was mayor, was that we go up to Sasquatch Provincial Park, and there's an old logging road that runs out the back of the park, goes out to Garnet Creek, Ruby Creek Road, takes you back to Highway 7. And that used to be a railway, actually. So the road grade is there. It just needs to be cleared. A bridge over Mahood Creek, and we have a northern exit. And I've been advocating for that route now for at least 20 years. All they keep doing is having committee meetings and nothing actually gets done. If they'd given me the money they'd spent on studies and reports, I could have built that road by now. I have an excavator.
I remember that story on social media when we were dealing with Rockwell Drive. One other issue that I know you've put a light on, and a few others, is communication when it comes to watching council, whether it's on video, potentially maybe audio records, and some of us in the media we find the website for the village can be challenging to get into, but watching council live, is that something you really want to see improved, or is there a budget anywhere that can be put to use for that?
Well, they have spent an enormous amount of money on equipment which is not being used. My position is that the civic rights of the people of the village need to be restored, and part of that civic rights is the right to either have a recording of the council meeting. I would like it to be zoomed, every meeting to be zoomed. They're not currently zoomed and they're not currently recorded. So we have no way of verifying what actually happened at the meeting. All we have is the council minutes, which are very sketchy in some places.
One thing that we were talking about off air, and we now have 4-year terms for the mayor and for council. When you started, you were back in the day of 1 year?
No, 2-year terms.
2-year terms.
Yeah.
And you'd like to see that come back?
Well, I think that was a good system because we had an election in the village every year, and half the councillors were up for election, and the mayor every second year. So you had accountability on an annual basis. You had a stewardship responsibility to stand up in front of the people every year and account for what your council had done or what you were doing. And I thought that was very engaging, and we had a lot more engagement by the public in the whole process of planning. We had commissions, we had the Advisory Planning Commission, the Recreation Commission, and people were more engaged. At the moment, the way it sits, you have a council that go into a bunker-like setting for 4 years, and there's very, very little public engagement, and it's not even encouraged. My position is that everybody has the right to stand up and address their elected officials at a public council meeting, to have their questions dealt with and answered, and to have them properly recorded in the minutes. I think there's a whole package of civic rights that needs to be restored in Harrison Hot Springs, and I would hope to be able to do that.
To reach out to you on social media, website, Facebook page, what do you have up?
I'm an active participant in our local Facebook page, Harrison Hot Springs News and Views. I don't do a lot of self-promotion through social media. Maybe I should be doing more of that. But I live right in the village. I live almost across from the village office. I'm there every day. And I'm accessible by phone, or people can call by or send me an email. So I'm easily accessible anytime somebody wants to talk about Harrison.
John Allen, and we will have more of these discussions. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for the time.
And you're watching ChillTV's News of the Week.
How's it going, everyone? Josh back with you once again after a 2-week vacation at Walt Disney World. Here are my quick takes. We got on all the new rides, okay? So you didn't ask, but I'm going to tell you anyways. Guardians of the Galaxy roller coaster, 10 out of 10. Unbelievably good ride. We had so much fun. On the other hand, the Star Wars rides, hot take, kind of victim of their own hype a little bit. Like, they were good, but you're waiting 4 hours for Rise of the Resistance? Really? Anyways, enough about Disney World. Let's jump into sports for this week. Football season, ladies and gentlemen, is back. Monday night, NFL kicks off with the Broncos and the Seahawks, and it's Friday Night Lights for real as the GW Grams 2022 football campaign kicks off this weekend. The Week 1 schedule is going to break down as follows. The junior varsity Grizzlies are on the road tonight against Vancouver College. And then the senior varsity team plays at 7 p.m. on Friday night at the Exhibition Stadium against Carson Graham. Great to have football back in our lives. It is that time of year. It's good to be back. We're going to stick with football. The first ever Cascade Cup between the Valley Huskers and the Langley Rams was this weekend in Langley. And the Huskers won a super tight game, 23-22. Keep in mind, it wasn't until earlier this season that the Huskers notched their first ever win in like 25 years against the Rams. And now the Huskers have swept the season series and have sole possession of third place in the BCFC. The Huskers are at 4-2, and the Rams are the inverse, 2-4. This rivalry game is going to be scheduled every year going forward, and next year's edition will be hosted right here in Chilliwack. The Huskers will look to continue their winning ways on the road for the entire month of September, and next up is a fair ride to Nanaimo to play the 1-5 Vancouver Island Raiders on Saturday, September the 10th. So like I said, football's starting, school has started, pumpkin spice lattes are back. Doesn't mean anything to me, but to some people it matters. And that means hockey season is right around the corner. Chilliwack Chiefs training camp started over the long weekend and included 2 intra-squad games. The Chiefs are going to be in Hope on Wednesday night for an exhibition game against Merritt, and will host West Kelowna at the Coliseum on Friday night for another exhibition tilt. The regular season is scheduled to begin on September 23rd against Langley, so if you're interested in tickets, check out the Chiefs website. Go check out some local hockey. And you know what? Speaking of local hockey, there's some coming up this weekend because the Chilliwack Jets are starting their regular season Sunday night against Surrey. 5 p.m. puck drop at the Sarda Sports Complex. If you're craving that live hockey, go check it out. Tickets at the door. Chilliwack's Jordan Heidema played the entire match for the Canadian women's national soccer team as they won 2-1 over Australia. The back half of a 2-game series was played this past Tuesday in Sydney. Heidema was in the starting lineup at forward, and head coach Bev Priestman kept the 21-year-old in for the entire match. Both Canadian goals were scored by Adriana Leone, with one set up by Christine Sinclair and the other by Jade Rose. Heidema's play and presence in the starting lineups is actually a really good sign for her, as Canada is gearing up for the 2023 FIFA Women's World Cup, which will be held July 20th to August 20th in Australia and New Zealand, so hopefully she can stick in the starting lineup through that. As a reminder, Jordan and the girls won Olympic gold last year in Tokyo. Finally, Agassiz Speedway is back on the track, both Friday and Saturday night this week, with the Fred Renard Senior 6th Annual Open Wheeled Classic. This event will feature the midgets, sprints, and dwarf classes, and tickets will be available at the gate. Check out their website for all the racing details. Thank you very much for joining me for sports. It's so good to be back. I mean, I would rather be in Disney World, but it is good to be back in Chilliwack. Let's go back to Don, and he's got the weekend weather for you. Give it to us, Don.
ChillTV weather, loads of sunshine this week. Temperatures pushing 30 degrees. Now, Roger Panet with Environment Canada confirmed this past August was the warmest August in Chilliwack history. And here's the kicker, no significant rain for the next week. This drought continues. If you'd like to participate in reporting news in Chilliwack and you have a story you think we should know about, you can always send us a note to news@chilltv.ca. We'd love to hear from you. That's the news this week. I'm Don Lehn.